Sugar City FM 90.3. Nor are such statements necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of this station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsinkits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Fear nor favor, and tonight we are hoping to discuss a few topics and subtopics in the most objective of ways that we normally would do. It is Independence 40, and we would have had quite a number of activities. I would like to commend the Independence 40 Organization Committee for putting on such an excellent parade show on the 19th. I think that we had spectacular output from the persons in uniform, armed and unarmed, and it was quite a sight to behold. We at Sugar City would like to sincerely express our appreciation for the quality of performance from those stakeholders involved. In particular, we would have seen the Jones show, and I think that it has been replayed over and over and over. Whenever the slightest opportunity presents itself, persons are making good use of those opportunities and even getting those who did not get to see it firsthand to seriously enjoy it. It is something that seems as if it would not get stale just now. And the more you look at it, is the more you want to look at it some more. It could be a bit addictive, and I hope that it will be placed in the archive so that at convenient junctures it can be utilized again. I hope that all the schools would have a copy of it, that when they have some time, scheduled time, they can continue to view that particular set of events on that day and save whatever ought to be saved on the proper equipment so that it can be cherished and preserved for some time to come. Also a part of the independence season, because some people see independence as a single day, the 19th, and then that's it. We still have quite a number of independence events going on, and people are looking forward to those events. I think you have a cook-off coming on tomorrow. Was it today? Is it today the cook-off? A cook-off, and then you have the Jill display. I think the Jill display is on Friday. Please correct me if I have it a bit slightly wrong, but we still have that cook-off and that Jill display to carry on and to enjoy. Now, there was something in particular that would have given citizens quite a boost economically. The reset, Independence 40 reset, and we had it in various areas. I think most importantly for many persons, there was a reset for personal economics, and that was in the form of $1,000. Regardless of what was done, you'll always have people to the left and to the right, and some down the center. Some feel that it was a great gesture. Others feel that the gesture was not of sufficient magnitude or quantum, and there were others who were stoic or indifferent as to whatever it was. But we have to learn to be appreciative. We should not let persons who have millions, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, and in fairly good economic position to transfer their perception on us to be ungrateful with that particular gesture. Some people would say that it is our monies that the government is giving back. Yes, that might be true, but there are certain occasions on which those monies or benefits would be given to our citizens. And this one in particular was not planned. So therefore, it came in very handy for a good percentage of persons. Yes, it was a surprise to most, and of course, it would take a little bit of time to get it where the fund's supposed to go. Eventually, everybody cannot get it at the same time on the same day. You have human beings trying to put these transactions into place, and we have to be a little bit patient. I wouldn't even say Jobish. You wouldn't take faith, you just take a little bit of considerate patience. And it was indicated that persons would start receiving or seeing some manifestation of that 1,000 deposit as of this week. And since we only have 2 more days per se as working weeks, as a working week, then some persons might have checked their account and might have gotten it today. Others might get tomorrow. Then others might still roll over into next week. I guess the order of giving or depositing would consider the pensioners first, and then those who qualified other than pensioners would come up next in various batches. Now, there seemed to be an issue, and people try to put spin on things that are favorable to others to make them feel not as appreciative as they ought to feel. We had some qualifications, some statements, and some qualifications and further qualifications. And persons are using various adjectives and conducting themselves. in a bit of awkward situations because qualifications were made. At one time, it was the perception and understanding that once you registered with Social Security, the perception was that you would get $1,000. But mere registration cannot automatically translate to the getting of $1,000. There are persons who have registered with Social Security and maybe have not even paid a cent to Social Security since that day of registration. You have some who would have paid varying degrees of contributions. Many of them might not be up to date with their contributions. But in order to qualify the statement, it was said that persons who would have 26 weeks of contributions from 2019 to the current position. And to clear up certain things, 1 week is equivalent to a contribution. So 26 contributions, if you maybe divide by 4, you'll get maybe 6.5. 4 times 6, 24, remainder 2. 2 over 4 is a half. So basically, that period of time, 26 weeks, 26 contributions, and a contribution is equivalent to 1 week's worth of monies placed into the Social Security coffers on your behalf. And that is not bad because from 2019, if you got to check from January, you got 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. And then you have 3/4 of a year in 2023. That is a sufficient period of time for most persons to have made reasonable contributions, and it is not a bad gesture at all. You work and you contribute, or people contribute on your behalf. And maybe sometimes things like this would be great because then you get to find out whether or not employers were making contributions on your behalf. Some persons get shocked and awe to realize that contributions were not made on their behalf. Some might even feel a bit bad because the total or cumulative number of contributions might not come up to 26. Somebody might ask a question, what happened to persons who would have paid 24, 25, just under the 26. And then you could have all sort of a plethora of permutations thereafter with respect to the number of contributions made on behalf of an individual. But the benchmark seemed to be 26 contributions or 26 weeks worth of contribution to Social Security. Some people are asking you not to be satisfied, and it is a shame, it is whatever other parallel adjectives that they want to use. Some people indicate that it should have been a double salary. Now you have to look at things carefully. The only person would be in a position, or the only institution would be in a position to pay a double salary would be to government workers. So government workers could have gotten a double salary. What happened to those in the private sector? What happened to those who are self-employed? They would have been out of this equation. So ideally, given each person who registered with the Social Security and would have made 26 weeks worth of contribution, much more persons were captured in that volume of individuals. And we have to be grateful. It is not something that was a must. And some people want you to behave and conduct yourself as if you should be angry at somebody because it was not sufficient. You have to do comparative analysis, and you will realize that $1,000 is much better than zero. And once you can do that, the appreciation spectrum would be transcended, and you could feel better within yourself. And another aspect of it is that once persons, so many persons, would have gotten the $1,000, you have more spending power, at least for a period of time. Some people would save a bit, but a lot of persons would spend some of it. And once you start to spend, the economy would experience positive gains. Every individual who spends a fraction of that money is contributing to the positive upturn of the economy. And we have to take all those things into consideration. Some persons worked out that the money should have been given to citizens alone, persons who were born here. But you have persons who are not born here who are paying Social Security and paying much more Social Security than some of us who are actually born here. It is true that you could say, let us say you have about 400 persons who are non-Kitishans or Nivisions benefiting from such a decision. 400 times 1,000 is 400,000. Or even if it's 500 of them, 500 times 1,000 is 500,000, which is $500,000. So it is an awkward situation to strike a balance, whether it ought to have been given to just locals, and I say locals, persons who are born here. But if you have persons contributing, there are others who feel that they will get the benefits when the time comes for them to get those normal benefits. But anything extra should be just given to local citizens. Well, there's always different views, and it's a democratic country, and persons would have the rights to express themselves as such. But the overall take is that you must not let people transfer their anger, perception, envy of a decision that was taken onto you and cause you to behave in a way that they think would be gratifying to them, because at the end of the day, you have to give an account for your own economic situation. Had it not been given to you, any of those persons who are encouraging you to be ungrateful to the gesture, would they have even given you $100, $200, $300, $400, $500? No, they would not have. So therefore, you got to ask to be mutually excluded from such perception. Everybody would have their own economic situation. You might have somebody working for a reasonable salary, maybe government, whoever, private sector. But not because somebody might be working for a reasonable salary. How much of it would represent net disposable income? Some of us have mortgage to pay, we have different things, higher purchase, kids to look after, everything. And as such, whatever people perceive our salaries to be, they have to be mindful that there are obligations with respect to financial commitments to take care of. Sometimes you find somebody who working for minimum wage is in a much better position than somebody who working for 10 times the minimum wage, because that liquid cash, that net disposable income is way different. You'll be surprised that some persons who working at the industrial site, they are better at saving than others who are working elsewhere that's supposed to be superior in working condition and returns than them. Because we have a bad habit as Kititians. We tend to have a practice of trying to save what is left after spending, when we should actually be spending what is left after saving. So you got to commit yourself to a certain percentage of savings, whether weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. And when you commit yourself to that, you have to have the discipline to maintain that. A lot of us do not have any cushion, economic cushion. We basically live from paycheck to paycheck. And it's not that we could not effectuate some savings. It's just a bad habit that once money is with us, we spend it and spend it and spend it. We don't care anything about the future, whether short term, medium term, or long term. But we must be able to have some degree of cushion for unforeseen contingencies, where you might have to make actions or decisions that you did not really plan for. And I'm not certain if there are things that we would not have planned for. Because if you're putting aside monies for a rainy day, I don't know if we can fully say that we did not plan for that, because we are saving for unforeseen contingencies. We might not be able to specify what they may be, but at the same time, we have something just in case X happen or Y happen or A happen or B happen. To the extent to which you might have it covered, that is the next question. The fact that you now have an expense of $2,000 that you never quite budgeted for specifically, you might have had $1,200. That means that you only have to get another $800 to make up. But had you not been putting aside something, you would have had to come up with the full $2,000. And that is why we have to be more, we have to husband our resources in a more deliberate way. It's not everything that we want we get at a particular time. You have to look to see what sacrifices I have to make in order to get this. To what extent I'll have to make that sacrifice. What period of time would afford me the actual getting of that particular asset or good or services. We have to start being more deliberate and calculating in our financial decision. You call it financial management. You call it budgeting, planning. We have to do that. We would not always be able to meet things in the time frame that we really would like to meet those stuff. And that is why, too, we have higher purchases. And that is why we have to pay interest on higher purchase. Because higher purchase arrangements allow us to get something that we ought not to have gotten at that particular juncture. You might want a refrigerator, and if you have to save to buy it for cash, it might take you another 2, 3, 4 years to do that. Whereas if the arrangement permitted you to get it, you can get it the very same day, the very next day, the very same week, but then you pay back by installments, and you pay the original cost plus the interest. The interest is the cost you have to pay, price you have to pay in order to get that fixed asset or that item before you would have otherwise been able to get it. So whatever service you would have put it to, whatever function you would have been able to put it to, that would have had to be delayed so the higher purchase would come into play. Right? So we are thankful for the personal reset with respect to finance. They had reset with respect to water and electricity. Some persons had the water disconnected, some had the electricity disconnected. Nowhere at all in any familial house or home, those two items should be missing. And I think it was compassionate for the PM and his cabinet to realize that those without electricity and water ought to have been attended to in a way that would make them more comfortable. You have single parent homes where to be without electricity could have placed that home under undue economic pressure. It could have interfered with their sanity, their psychological being. And once that those stuff start to step in, you do not have the same individual and the gesture. When we consider in the true effect of allowing people to get back water and electricity back on before they might have been able to do that, you have to look at the whole ramification that was occurring when the electricity and the water was taken away or caused at home to be deprived of such. It's not easy. We see a lot of people going and we don't know what pressures they are under. And if only we can be more empathetic towards each other. And not just towards each other, but those in authority, be more empathetic towards those who are really struggling. Our society would be a much better society. There are persons who are not looking for much. They just simply want to be in a position to be comfortable. It is the degree of comfort that would matter. Some people would do with just an ounce of comfort. Some people would want 10 pounds of comfort, 20 pounds of comfort. I'm just trying to quantify it. Different people are satisfied with varying degrees of comfort. And once you get them into that zone, they do not even look to see what other persons would have with respect to their degree of comfort. And once we can do that, we can have a society where persons are very close to normal above their shoulders. But when you have to study and worry about stuff, sometimes you yourself might be a very strong human being, you have good coping skills. But what about the persons who rely on you as a breadwinner? What happened to them? They might not express their dissatisfaction and their discomfort with you openly. They might internalize it. They might become aggressive. Or they might just isolate themselves from amongst people. And that becomes a problem. Sometimes it is the lack of support, the lack of understanding. And any politician who is genuine would always have the ears to the ground and try to understand what persons are experiencing. You have some hardcore politicians who couldn't give one damn about the suffering of people. They know that they have plenty, millions, hundreds of thousands, and they couldn't care less. But what they do, set you onto other people. And that is rather unfortunate. What politicians should be doing is advising you to see how you can incrementally become more comfortable from an economic or financial perspective. Politicians don't have to be in power to help, because not all the time that people want money, monetary help. Sometimes they want to know how to get things done. Sometimes they have been poorly managing their monies. And sometimes all they need is some strong, positive advice. That can be your role too. But there are some who are really poor and destitute and need help. You don't have to be in power to help. If you're a genuine politician, in power, out of power, should not stop you from exhibiting your humanitarian effort towards these people. And that is how you know the difference between persons who are genuinely caring and those who are using people as stepping stones to provide them with all them and their family with all the opportunities that they want. So you get a little reset. Some persons are complaining that the reset should have meant that all arrears are wiped off. But we have to be careful with that too, because we know that the country is propelled by revenue derived from taxation. The disappointment came in when some persons felt that they will still have to pay the outstanding electricity bills or water bills. But then it is up on you to go to the electricity department and make arrangements, because it would be a give and take situation as to how much of this outstanding debt can you pay monthly. I don't think that they're imposing on you so much. They're asking of your input. How much of this bill can you afford to pay monthly? Then having done that and having taken each other's consideration into account, you might say, well, the amount that I could pay is X amount. And by paying X amount, it might take you 3 years, 4 years, 5 years to eventually clear your payment plan and your outstanding electricity bill. But you have to be mindful that if you say that you can pay $60 a month to try to reduce your electricity bill, you have to understand that you have to remain up to date with your new electricity bill. I don't want to use current, because you have current and electricity, and those are the play on words. If you pay $60 and your outstanding bill that you had, the one that you're now getting, you also have to be able to pay that one. So every month you expect to pay 60, because that is the arrangement that you made on the electricity department. And then if your electricity bill that is coming for September is $75, you'll have to pay $75 plus $60, $135 per month. And you'll have to continue like that. You have to continue like that, and do not let mishaps come in between so that they can cancel out. You know, cannot go bad on the plan that you would have made down at the electricity department or the water department. You have to keep that good. You have to now create a good credit history. A good credit history. And once you do that, and you work tirelessly to get your priorities straight and look after your electricity and water bill, you should be okay. Because that alone could instantaneously provide you with psychological comfort. And psychological comfort is important. They had persons who would have given up. We are going to stay like this for a while. Maybe another 8 months to a year and a half, you're going to be without electricity. Because there is absolutely nowhere that I can pay off this electricity bill before a year and a half. And getting the good news that you can now have your electricity bill, your electricity in service, and still have the bill outstanding and just incrementally paying on it. That is excellent for anybody's mind. And sometimes you have situations like that, it pervades the entire home. And persons are quite aware and they start to underperform in school, at work. And some of them can't stand the embarrassment that the neighbor laughing after you because they know that you don't have any electricity. Temptations might come your way. But let us go rob somebody. Or family not supposed to go through this protracted time of embarrassment. And then things could just multiply. That multiplier effect in a negative spectrum of societal happenings. And sometimes all you need to do too is have family input. Sometimes one person is responsible for almost everything, 90% of the bills in the house. You have your little family meetings, and everybody will take a bit of it. Take a bit of it. You might even have to take a little bit more than others because of how you're working. You're making a little bit more than others. You shoulder a little bit more than the others. And every household would have that degree of comfort that they're looking for. If you slip this month and you couldn't pay the full 60 because the other bill came up to a little $10, $15, $20 more, whenever you have an opportunity, at the quickest opportunity, you must go and take care of that $15 short that you paid. The $45 you paid instead of the $15, you go and you make the payment. If you find yourself under extraordinary pressure, you go in and you have a conversation. I know you said that I'm not supposed to fall short within this period of time. It happened. I can give an explanation. There were medical expenses for an emergency that we had, and I had to make an input. And this is the situation. This is the proof. This is the bill from the hospital. This is the invoices from the receipts from the medication. And somebody must be able to empathize with you. If you have an employee that is really obnoxious and want to stay in a straight jacket and do not wish to understand your plight, you can kindly ask to see that person's supervisor. And then if the supervisor has a parallel type of behavior, you ask to go further up and further up. They are bosses. The system is structured vertically. So you keep going up and up and up. And if you reach the top, and you cannot get any satisfaction despite the preponderance of evidence to show that you're really under some extra pressure, then you go and see your representative. You put your representative there. Representative supposed to rise to the occasion. Representative supposed to be more empathetic towards you. And plus your representative supposed to know you much better than the employees, supervisors, and managers at the electricity or water department. And you're not somebody who's going to make it a habit. So we have to be very mindful of our commitments We have to recalibrate our preference scale. We have to miss out on a few activities. You have to save a little bit more. And, it is interesting that we seem to be in the most festive of mood for the entire year. From the time COVID went by and the doors and windows were reopened, we seem to be partying, 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 partying. Some persons are not taking the responsibility to themselves and the degree of comfort seriously. Every pan knock, some of us want to be there. Yes, you have your DJs and your entertainers and you have special occasions, but you cannot go to all. You cannot go to all. You have to miss some. You know your situation more than anybody else. Why do you want to go to every function? You're aware of these, you just pick one or two and you go to them. But you have to look at the indentation that it would make on your readily available cash. You have to look at your cash flow. How much money am I going to spend now? How much money do I have coming in the same period of time? And if my outflow is much greater than my inflow, I have to make adjustments. There is no way your outflow should be greater than your inflow. And don't talk about a wide margin. You socialize, you have friends who would socialize with you, but they would not help you to offset any of your debts them. Because sometimes it's pride as well preventing you from letting them know that I am indebted to this organization, this higher purchase thing, and you cannot make it to that function. And you have to be mindful too, because, like I said, we seem to be in the most festive of moods throughout various community festivals, music festival. You have Christmas coming up. A lot of actions going on. I think we have another festival coming up around the corner. I saw something to that extent in the news, which I think is Villagerama, if my memory serves me correctly. Yes, it's just festival after festival after festivals. You have to have a circuit breaker. The entertainer's going to be there. The DJ is going to be there. I agree that during the COVID, they might have been locked down for a period of time. So they too were deprived of making a steady stream of revenue. But you can always be the one to rise to the occasion to precipitate them back to the normal generation of revenue. You'll have to do without your contribution sometimes. And some of us would have kept ourselves stagnant with respect to our capacity to generate revenue. You working for the minimum wage or you working for a particular wage. The next step, incremental step for you with respect to wage will depend on your academic achievements. Some of us are not making any effort to get over that hurdle and move into the other category. Some of us at one category for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And that cannot be, that should not be. You should always make yourself competitive so that you could move to the next level of income generation. You have to do that. Because you would not always be able to rely on people, family, friends, associates, maybe, but are not obligated to help you. So you have to start to see how you can incrementally provide your own degree of comfort. Do not waste. Do not waste things. Some of us cook food and half the food is wasted. Well, if you cook once and it's wasted, cook twice, 3 times, 4 times, 45 times, 50 times, you cook the same quantity and half is wasted. I think that something should kick in and some decision would have to be made that I have to cook less than this. It is better to cook less and crave more than to overcook and lose the utility to the extent that you no longer relish in what you cooked and would have to dispose of it. Some of us put food on the refrigerator, in the freezer, and we have to understand that every time you go to that source and take out some of that food and put it back, you have to defrost it in some way. And when you do that, you are giving flexibility to the bacteria that are there in that food already. Refrigeration does not stop the accumulation of bacteria. They keep them under control. They might not multiply exponentially as they would have had the environment being conducive. But from the time you take them out the freezer and you put them to thaw off, where the temperature going to change and the type of condition that they might need to multiply faster would at some point in time be reintroduced. So that food, when you put it back into the refrigerator, whether the freezer or the other side, and I hope it's in the freezer part, it would have more bacteria associated with it progressively. You cook a large quantity and you're taking out peas. Some people like to cook for an entire week. That is not the best possible thing to do. Some of us so busy to cook more often. So we rely on food. Where some business places, they too are included. They cook huge quantities and just put aside. And the next day they just thaw off and they give people. That is fertile ground for bacteria to multiply. And sometime later, several hours or maybe the next day, people in pain for the stomach, and they get all kind of discomfort, not realizing it's the same food that they've been putting in the freezer and taking out and take out some, put back in. The ideal thing is when you use the freezer to store your food, you must only go back there once if you want to avoid the concentration of bacteria that can build up. So we have to make adjustments. Don't waste, don't over party. And make sure that you keep your adjustment or your reset consistent and you try to oblige under the conditions that were put down for you. We have lands. We have NHC. Some persons would have defaulted on the payments on the mortgage with NHC. And they're saying to you, all the penalties that accumulated as a result of that default, that continuous or continual defaulting, we are going to do away with it. So now when you go to pay, instead of the accumulated interest plus the principal, they now take off the interest and you pay only on that principal. Some people interest might have reached a stage where it might have gone over the remaining principal that is supposed to be paid, simply because they have not paid for years. And this is really a reset, because those accumulated interests could be extremely high. And people got to be appreciative. You cannot be placed in a position where you utilize goods and services and your credit history becomes so bad that you have to be helped continuously. Just be mindful, keep that awareness up, and try to do what you can do. And I think that you would be in a better state. And I see something from 1998 to 2023. That's like 25 years. That is good consideration. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So you want to say congratulations and commend the Prime Minister, Dr. Joe, and his cabinet of ministers for exercising such timely sensitivity to address the discomfort, the economic discomfort, financial discomfort that quite a large portion of our society was experiencing. I know occasionally things like these would happen, but at this particular juncture, the 40th anniversary of our independence, it is truly appreciated. You make the rounds and you have the discussions. Those that are adverse in their discussions, they are simply outliers, statistical outliers. They don't apply to the average expression of gratitude. And sometimes too, we could show appreciation if you see the good gentleman or the ministers walking. You could go and shake their hands and say, thank you. No, things like those gestures would move the hearts of those in power and authority to assist in whatever way they can. Just say thank you. If person's telling you that they shouldn't call it a gift because it's people money, I mean, that is so superficial. Very, very superficial. If that is the idea and ideology that people trying to transfer to your way of thinking, something is wrong. It is your money. Don't call it any gift. It is a gift because that money wasn't due to you at that time. how many persons would have passed away and didn't get a chance to get benefits from Social Security? Some persons, as soon as they make the age to get the benefits, they would have passed. Some passed before. Some passed long before, despite making tremendous contributions. And there were no beneficiaries to benefit in a sustained way. When my dad passed, I just wonder how come his family could not have benefited from those many years of contribution, 36 years of policing, ended up Assistant Commissioner of Police. So he did make some good contribution. We might have been able to get, is it 2005 or something, 1,005 to go towards the burial. But nothing was for the surviving family. So not everybody lucky to reap the benefits. Some got, but many did not get. So any situation that allow individuals to get a bit of the monies that they would have contributed must be embraced, especially if it is if it was not scheduled. We have to understand that. Comparative analysis. Once we get into that frame of mind and mindset, we'll be more appreciative. There are things about Social Security that I don't like. I know, of course, the Social Security Act would have given the authorities the flexibility to invest the money that we have there. We had some terrible investments over the years, and as a result, Social Security was placed in a position less favorable than it ought to have been currently. Non-judicious judgment in investing the monies there. I think that somebody ought to have been paying back something on those monies. But another aspect is that all of us contributing, but then the workers there, it is my understanding that they get loans, interest-free loans. I'm subjected to correction. Interest-free loans. So why they alone could get interest-free loans from the accumulated pool of contributions that other persons put there? I believe at some point in time, some persons might be facing some real financial pressure and might be in need of medical treatment that is way beyond the power of the purse, should be able to approach Social Security and say, look, I would like to get a loan against what you have for me in terms of pension. So maybe when you would have done that and you become pensionable at 62, maybe for the first year, you might only pull in 50% of what you ought to have pulled in. Maybe for the second year, likewise, the third year, likewise, because you would have already been given something in advance. And that would not be for so many persons. You're just talking about persons who find themselves on the end of the spectrum where it is most unfavorable for them to advance and get their medical treatment. But I really don't think that the staff at Social Security should be getting interest-free loans or 1% interest, 2%, it doesn't matter. They are benefiting tremendously. Yes, you have to find ways to help your employees, but at the same time, you must not give the perception that they are surgically discriminated in favor of, unless that could create problems from a societal perspective. But back to it, you do not let people tell you that it is your money and they're giving you back. There are prescribed situations in which you will get various benefits. Those that are outside those umbrellas would be bonuses. And bonuses are not always scheduled. Once you get your benefit when you're supposed to get them, Social Security is doing what they have to do with your money. When a decision is made with some degree of oddity in order to assist at a particular juncture, given the fact that we would have had some real imported costs of high cost of living, we have to take into consideration actions that can be taken to assist in a timely manner. Sometimes delayed action could cause more problems for some people than others. Let us take a break.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is the cancer man who run come out for war?
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is the cancer man who run come out for war?
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Welcome back to Fear in Our Favor, and we continue our discussion. Like I said, that we would be discussing a wide variety of issues from an objective perspective. One thing I want to look at, I heard the general manager for the electricity department indicated that the demand for electricity is basically even with the supply. And that is a sort of awkward position for us. It's like saying we want 50, we have 50. And anytime we want 70 and we only have 50, we have to do some rationing. We need to get ourselves in a position where the supply of electricity is about twice the demand. That is how we get our comfort. So we have to move. Certain things would have to be done together. Unless we'll always have to have load shedding. People will be without electricity for a while. And maybe a regular basis. Because if you do not have the supply keeping up with the demand, and I can see the demand would go up and go up and go up because the government housing program would be building a few thousand homes. And each home would have to be supplied with electricity. Let us assume that we have not increased the supply, but the demand goes up and up and up. You could see what would be happening. So as we build those homes, we also have to take action to bring in some good generators that could stand the test of the various elements and the passage of time. Those that we have in stock or in service right now, we have to see what we can do to improve their quality or to have them supplemented with other sources of supply. Unless in the medium term we are going to experience problems. The houses would be going down. There will be a need for the electricity. The electricity generation is not keeping pace with the demand for the electricity. The supply is lagging behind, and we have to work out some projections. How much can we put on the grids not to disrupt the normal supply of electricity to other buildings? We have to work out that. The home's going down, yes. What can we do? Solar energy. Are we going to ensure that those homes are built with solar energy integrated into the overall plan? Because if we do not do that, it can become problematic. Are these homes being advertised with solar energy a part of the overall composition, to put it that way? If they were not, and it would mean that individuals would have to look after their own solar energy supply, or would they be provided at an extra cost? I'm not really too au fait with what's going on with respect to those homes. And of course, if I'm not au fait, I cannot be au courant. I'm not informed, that is au fait, and I'm not up to date, that is au courant. So I would have to find out. But whatever would have to be done to take the strain off of what we already have would be greatly appreciated. They got to go hand in hand. It is extremely nice to have persons getting their own homes. And I believe that we have to be careful with things like that. I heard the good PM say that it is not nice to have persons coming back home from university and have to stay in the parents' home until they're 40 something, before they could really accumulate what they have to accumulate to go on their own. But on the other side of it, some of that might need to be encouraged. Some of that might need to be encouraged. People would have to have solid footings before they attempt to step out of the comfort zone. Sometimes it's not a matter of how old you be and whether you're living with. Sometimes all you need to do is put on an extra room for you. Master bedroom with your bath and everything. What else you want? You have your privacy. You share one set of electricity. The usage would go up. But it would be totally different if you had to go elsewhere and establish your own. Not everybody could see themselves getting into their own home and still maintain that degree of comfort that they would like to. And that is what I was talking about. Sometimes you're working for more than somebody else, but your net disposable income is just presenting your mind with some pressure. You could be working for twice as much as somebody, but the mortgage and the car and everything else piling up on you. And your net disposable income might just be $175 a month. You have your purchase for the vehicle, you have your purchase for the TV and the beds and all sort of things just piling up on you. And some of these lending institutions, they just lend and lend and lend and lend and lend. And when you do that, you have persons struggling with a net disposable income. Sometimes they have to eat one meal per day because they have bills to pay. You have to be mindful of the steps that you are going to make. Know about the ramifications. Not because they have houses available, you take house. You have to do your calculations. You have to do your calculations. Unless you can create problems for you in the short term, medium term, and more so in the long term. So let us be deliberate in our calculations and let us make sure that the structures that we are putting down and would require electrical attention, that we have the supply to maintain and sustain the demand. We have to. Now, off of electrical supply, well, we got to develop our solar. We have to get it. It got to come. We need a few solar farms in different areas of the island. But for those houses that are going to be put down, because I wouldn't stop others from putting down homes that are not a part of that particular program. so you could see what could be happening. And you have to put in the necessary infrastructure so people can be properly accommodated. But to be forewarned is to be forearmed, and the sagacity of those in charge would be demonstrated. That is where we have to work together. The water supply, that is another issue that we have to pay close attention to. Yes, it is nice to have the tanks being placed in as many yards as possible. Excellent idea. You build the tanks them and put them in persons on persons' property. We have some spouts that we might need to put around the homes. We might make it mandatory that cistern or at least a tank is part of the structuring of the new homes, or any home at all. It could be homes that are already constructed, already in livable conditions. You need those big tanks. The issue with that, however, is that based on climate change and the amount of rain that is falling and that will be falling based on the projection, it could become problematic. Because once you hook up a tank, or you hook up 1,000 of them or 2,000 tanks, everybody gonna be selfish. Selflessness will just dilute to insignificance. Already there's the threat of water being scarce. Based on climatic conditions alone, you put these tanks in persons' yard on the compound. A matter of fact, some persons might have even 2 tanks or 3 tanks on their compound. If the rain is not coming, having the spouts, I wouldn't say would be useless, but at that particular juncture would not serve much of a purpose, because no rain is falling to go in the spout and go down in the tanks. So the only other option is for persons to use the pipe water, let us put it that way, and to fill up the tanks. If everyone with a tank does that, isn't it the same scarce water that is being used up? The same scarce water that we're asking persons not to wash our cars. If you're doing that, get a bucket and wipe down, and that is all right. Water conservation. You conserve the water. We would have had that conversation going on for years as to how to conserve our water. But given the latitude or the dexterity of having storage tanks, that water from the pipe is going to be used to fill those water tanks. And maybe about that. How do we structure those tanks so that they cannot be filled with pipe water? You put in a valve, you can put in whatever you put in. People can make adjustments. Are you going to have people policing these tanks to ensure that persons are not taken from the public line? We have to work out something, and that unless that water would be an issue, or maybe the water department, you can check the person meter and see the extent to which the meter reading would have moved. Then you might have to implement a different rate. Those who have the tanks and the meter reading have this wide differential. Then after a certain amount of usage, then the rate is doubled or tripled or quadrupled. That is the only how you might have to get control over those with those tanks. But then some person might say to you, based on what rate we have right now, even if you triple that, they don't mind paying, but they have the water stored. They have the water stored. So these tanks can be a bit awkward for us. So we'll have to work out something that would create an equilibrium, and you don't have one set of persons with a yard and a compound with tanks of water. So when they start to pull, for that period of time that they're pulling, the supply of water going down and down and down and down, we might be able to dig some wells and establish a well field. And that would help to take some strain off of what we have already. That would be supplemental supply. But we have to be wise about this thing. The desalination plant. If you had desalination being done at a great rate, and from those desalination plants, you can get the fresh water going into storage tanks and people's compound. That would be much better. But at the same time, desalination plants, they use a lot of electricity. So whilst putting up the desalination plant, you have to simultaneously put up the solar plants and them likewise, a solar farm, solar supply of energy. So they run INCO, because if we don't do it that way and we take the electricity from the normal supply to run those desalination plants, that is some more pressure would be placed on the grids that we already have. So the solar energy would have to simultaneously be developed with the desalination plant. We don't have a choice. Put them side by side. Put them throughout the island. You understand that maybe two desal plants already came in, one for Nevis, one for St. Kitts. Nevis has a population of about 15,000. St. Kitts has a population of about 45,000. So demand is much higher, not a little, much higher in St. Kitts than in Nevis. And if you're talking about fair share and we get 2 tanks and we send one over Nevis, could that really be fair share? Because on a proportionate basis, I mean, you can't send a quarter tank, a half tank. A tank is a tank. Or a plant is a plant, desal plant. So you have to have them coming either much bigger than the ones that we have, or increase the number of them. And we have to understand too that the fishes would have feeding grounds within the marine environment. And once you have your desalination plant, because if you put in 99 gallons of seawater, you would get out about 33 gallons of fresh water. That means you return in 66 gallons of brine. Brine is very concentrated water, sodium chloride. You're sending it back. Now, if you send that brine directly back into the marine environment from whence the salt water or seawater came from, then you're increasing the concentration of salt in that particular area. So the fish them might not be able to withstand the increase in salinity, and therefore they would have to relocate. Fisher folks would now have to get an idea as to where these fish is gone. They'll just migrate, find somewhere else that is more conducive for their daily living. And maybe in order not to change their location, you can take the brine, the 66% brine, and have dilution ponds. You dilute the brine before it goes back into the marine environment, so that it would not have the adverse impact on the fish them, because the water is too highly concentrated with salt. So all those are possibilities. I would like to see how these things would be developed and see how we progress with them. But those are some challenges as well, what we would be doing. And then, based on the gradient, the topography of the land, you might need some submersible pumps to take the water and have it distributed throughout various communities. The water might have to be stored somewhere first, and based on the gradient, the submersible pumps will have the water going to certain places and then be gravity fed to the distribution line, meaning that the storage is higher and you just open your valves and the water will just go down, gravity fed. Because the submersible pump, in the event that it would have to move uphill, that too would require electricity. So it's an overall package that would have to be put in place to bring about the degree of comfort with respect to electricity and water. Now let us take a break and come back.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is one? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSinkits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear Nor Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. fellow citizens, near and far. Join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear Nor Favor.
Where is man? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your calls. Fear Nor Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Welcome back to Fear Nor Favor. I would like to discuss an issue that might not be at the pleasure of some persons. I believe that a lot of capital projects that would have been undertaken in the past many years, the dots just simply do not connect to logical understanding. And I believe that in order to account for those millions of dollars that were spent on capital projects, we might have to carry out some form of inquiry. Every time you hear about major capital projects, the equation just is not logical. A lot of monies would be invested on those capital projects. And the expected outcomes are not always achieved, but the monies were used up. I believe that it's high time when capital projects are being conducted, we should have accountability. We should have accountability. And every single capital project that would have taken place in maybe the last 15 to 20 years ought to go through a sort of fine-tooth comb inquiry. Too much things are not adding up. And it seemed to be a department or a set of events that are utilized to the benefit of a few from a financial perspective. And it is just my view that every single minister or director who were in charge of these capital projects, I think it's high time they come forward, face the general public, and explain where all these monies gone. And when you try to reconcile the spending of the monies to what is there to show, it's just not adding up. And I think as a country, we've been taking these things for granted. In St. Kitts and in Nevis. People have to be held accountable. If you have engineers and persons claim to be versed in financial management. Project coordinators. We have to come better than this. These dots are just not connecting. Too much money is normally involved in capital projects for us not to get the eventual outputs. Somebody must be held accountable. If you got set $1 million to do certain things, come and put your cards on the table. And once you do that, you are cleared. But if you don't have, or you're not required to account for the monies, it can't be business as usual. People would always take advantage of that. People would always take advantage of that. In recent time, I heard about the 14 point something million, for example, for the Basia High School. We are quite aware that there are certain things that would have to be done even before a building goes up, a structure goes up. But sometimes you get money in advance, and as the structure goes up, you are required to make your input. Some people are given a percentage deposit, and as things unfold, then balances would be had. But out of all this money that it is alleged would have been paid out for various activities or services, people should be able to come forward and be questioned by a panel to make people feel more comfortable, because already it is providing a societal discomfort, especially when you know that that amount of money might eventually go down the drain. Close to $15 million cannot be going down the drain in St. Kitts. If things were done to put it at a particular site, and for some reason or set of reasons, you had changes in the plan, and the old Basia High School site is going to be used, how much of that $14 million can be recuperated? How much of it? Because the services might not be needed over by the original site, but the services can be provided over by the old site. Some fraction of it must still be applicable even to the old site. And who would have gotten whatever they got should be able to render services to offset some of the monies that they might have gotten in advance. I cannot see that we are writing off almost $15 million and starting afresh to incur other expenses from scratch. So if you incur another $50 million per se, that $50 million in actuality is $64 million or $65 million. Because what was wasted was wasted. And once the school is built on the old ground, there may never ever be the need to put it on the intended new site. So what can be done to offset some of those millions from the intended site to the old site? Because you just cannot go like that. There must have persons who would have gotten monies with some services to be carried out later. Some persons might have carried out services and were paid, and that's a dead note. But is there any part of that $15 million, rounding it off, that can still be transferred by way of services to the old site? Because 15 million just can't go just like that. Cannot go just like that. So some conversations would have to be had. And they must be done in honesty, with transparency, and in public domain. We need to understand. All of it was used up. And by the way, I think that the government, the now government, would have to collaborate with whoever with respect to information and explain to us how that $15 million was broken down. I think that the general public would feel much better. Mr. X got that. Mr. Y got that. This company got that. That company got that. And we do the addition. And we appreciate that this fraction is completely taken care of. We cannot be recouped. But we have a piece down here with a 3 million, 4 million, 5 million that can be transferred to the old Bastia High School site and get that worth in service. Just can't go like that. I think that we have a culture of just accepting what those persons working on capital project tell us. Can't be like that. That's the recipe for disaster. That remind me of the old sugar estates where they have a category of expenses named miscellaneous expense, similar to sundry expenses. And sometimes the miscellaneous expenses high in hell. Because that is a place where people could have taken out some, they take now, unfortunately, and that used to take place in a maybe about it. Any business, any company running any miscellaneous expense or sundry expenses, that is the avenue or the pathway for monies to go in places that they ought not to go. In places where they're not benefiting the project, but benefiting some individuals. We have to change that culture. Ministers were involved, directors, architects, engineers, all those who are involved, they must come to the table and explain to us where the monies going where they're gone. You just cannot let people have their way with these capital projects all the time. Unless people would comfortably become millionaires off of money that was intended to put to use to benefit the overall country via capital project. We cannot do that. And I'm saying that every single ministry and minister who are placed in those situations to execute capital projects must come and give an account. Don't go give a one man any account, not two men any account, or one woman, two women any account. Come to the general public and say that I was given $7 million or $10 million to carry out this project. And this is line items of expenditure, and we add and we add and we add. You have to tell us why they were cost overrun, if they were cost overrun, if you're having time overrun, why time overrun. People have to be accountable to the very penny. We don't have money to waste like that. And whoever feels as though it is a golden opportunity, that must be taken out of their minds. Taxpayers' money. Even if it was a grant, it's taxpayers' money. We must not be placed under so much pressure when a few might have benefited to that great extent. Every penny must be accountable for. The penny drop in the dirt, we get shovel and whatever else we got, and we go dig up that penny there. I'm appealing to the current administration. Do not let us continue along that path. Do not let ministers get that kind of mindset. That they would not be subjected to this great extent of accountability, that they can take a chance. We need transparency. These capital projects carry a lot of money. And throughout the years, I don't believe that the monies have been properly accounted for. 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. Some persons may have ended up with monies, bank account that could choke any horse at the expense of taxpayers. It can't continue. And if and only if we have people colluding to effectuate such outcome, they must be properly investigated. These dots for these capital projects have simply not added up and reconciled. And something ought to be done. It ought to be done to prevent it going forward, and it ought to be done to correct the ills that would have been executed on the taxpayers, and to bring about some degree of understanding and comfort. Why everything had to be cost overrun? Why some people got to come here to do capital projects and it seems as if they have relocated, they live here? Why? Why the same set of people? What's the deal in it? What's in it for some people? Yeah, you come to the project, you do your project, you go. And I believe that there must be something within those contracts. That you come and you go. You finish your project, you come and you go. We could no longer afford that. And right now we can do with recouping some monies that didn't go in places that they ought to go. Some people don't want to say that. They don't want to hear them kind of utterances. But it is a reality that we've been faced with. I believe that they have some overcasting. I believe that we have persons getting involved in siphoning away, or a person who would have gotten involved in successfully siphoning away monies away from the project. I also believe that it might be the intentions of some persons to see in whatever subtle where they can get things siphoned away from projects. It must be held accountable. Every cent must be accounted for. Can't continue like this. Years upon years, these things going on. And I hope that it is not a part of this current administration when they give out the capital projects. Every cent must be accounted for. And we don't want anything behind closed doors, revelations. You have to table your expenses. How come a project never save anything? You got cost overrun. Because you never got cost underrun. How come a $5 million project just didn't use 3.5? Save 1.5? How come that never happened? How come it's always on the upper end? And we got to come better than that in this federation. That's taxpayers' money. You're asking taxpayers to make a lot of sacrifices. We have asked them to make a lot of sacrifices throughout the years. But you have a few persons who would have benefited tremendously. Because these persons in charge, and the engineers and the architects and all pertinent persons within that categorization, like forces unto themselves. A $600,000 project becomes a $850,000 project. And then the 250 gone elsewhere. This cannot be tolerated anymore. And whatever happened before, we got to try to recoup. We have to make a concerted effort to do that. And taxpayers should make sure that this is done. Unless we're not serious about incurring expenses in these capital projects. We have to. Every penny must be accounted for. And the situation with the Basia High, whatever done spend, it just can't go like that. some fraction of it must be transferable to the expenses over by the other, the old project. Something got to be. That can't be wiped off and then you start incurring from fresh, a dollar upwards, 14, $15 million gone, like that, nothing left at all, at all, at all. Now we need to put a panel together and ask some serious questions. What is left behind that can be transferred to the expenses over at the old Bastia High School site to be offset other potential expenses to be incurred? Something got to leave over. And I would like the PM to try and bring back some figures. Transparency it is called. Bring back some figures, let us know how much of it is still available to offset future expenses in association with the Bastia High School. And all these capital projects throughout the entire federation must account for every penny. Must account for every penny. There were situations way in the past I heard about persons selling government land and asking the buyer to give them 2 checks. If the land was 300,000, put 250 to the accountant general and put the other 50 for me. The records would reflect only the 250 paid to the accountant general. These are things that you hear about. And if and only if, you call it IFF in maths, if and only if that was a practice, it should be no more. Good night. We have come to the end of our session for tonight. Sorry to end on such bitter, sour note, but reality is reality. Taxpayers' money must be accounted for. Good night.
The opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this